Hi, today we welcome to Kiamidis Money Honey Dan Catarivas, President of the Israeli Federation of Binational Chambers of Commerce and Industry. His education and positions of responsibility held throughout his life enable him to express a valued opinion on many economic issues facing the world today. Points to notice are Trump economic measures and the influence on world economy, how Europe has to react, how to position ourselves in the new economic order between the US and China, who are the new leaders in the world economy, India, Israeli economy and its relation to Cyprus and Europe. The presentation is for information only and does not constitute invitation to invest. Καλωσορίζουμε σήμερα στο Kiamidis Money Honey τον Dan Catarivas, πρόεδρο της Ομοσπονδίας Διμερών Εμπορικών και Βιομηχανικών Επιμελητηρίων στο Ισραήλ. Η μόρφωση και εμπειρίες από τις θέσεις που κατήχε στην καριέρα του δίνουν το δικαίωμα να εκφέρει σεβαστή γνώμη για πολλά θέματα οικονομίας. Μερικά είναι: πώς μπορεί να αντιδράσει η Ευρώπη, πού θα βρεθούμε στη νέα οικονομική διαρρύθμιση μεταξύ ΗΠΑ και Κίνας, μήπως ξέρουμε το νέο ηγέτη της παγκόσμιας οικονομίας, Ινδίες, οικονομία του Ισραήλ και συσχέτιση με Κύπρο και Ευρώπη. Η παρουσίαση είναι μόνο για πληροφόρηση και δεν αποτελεί πρόσκληση για επένδυση.
Γεια σας. My guest today, and it is a great honor to have him as a guest, is Dan Catarivas, President of the Israeli Federation of Binational Chambers of Commerce and Industry. A very educated man, very experienced international, and his education and positions so far allow him to express a very respectable view on practically everything pertaining to economics and finance. Welcome to Kiamidis Money Honey. Thank you for attending. Of course,
thank you very much for having me.
We are coming in at a time when things are changing in the economy of this world by courtesy of Mr. Trump with the economic measures and the influence on world economy. And we're not really sure yet how far it will upset or construct new economy. Some people say he knows what the result would be, and he's striving for that. He wants to make America stronger than it is, but that means this protectionism, other countries will follow. So are we moving into an area where internationalism is not so much important anymore? I mean, we can say that I don't care if I'm producing something more expensive than if it was produced in another country, as long as I'm producing it in my own country, giving employment to my own people. What do you think?
Well, I think that you are perfectly right that we are at a crossroad where actually the world that we lived in since the end of the Second World War, with all the Bretton Woods agreement, the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO, then it was the GATT, but it became the WTO, and all the, again, even the UN, I mean, all the rules of the game of international governance seems to be questioned. And Mr. Trump is actually questioning the various, I mean, all the rule of the game, and he wants to play it according to his way.
Yes.
By way of saying, make America great again. I think that one of the problems is that he probably will make America alone and not necessarily great, okay? Because we are living since 45 in what, I mean, the name of the game has been globalization, has been international trade, has been creating trade agreements in order to maximize the wealth. Because again, basic economics hasn't changed.
Right.
There is this basic principle of comparative advantage, and it's true that you can produce everything if you want, especially if you're America, but the question is whether it makes sense.
Yes.
Whether it does not make sense to produce what you are good at and in order to sell it, and buy what you are not good at in order to buy it from other people. And in that way, you create better, it's a win-win situation. And this is a principle that I don't think that any economist around the world will question. Now, it's true that there are some things that have changed. The corona has certainly been a very, I would say, traumatic situation where suddenly everything stops. And then we are starting to ask ourselves whether we shouldn't take some precaution in order to guarantee certain products that we were buying from abroad, but we need actually for strategic reasons to produce at home. So yes, the supply chain and the production chain have been influenced by the corona, that's for sure. And the fact that also you have governments which are headed by unpredictable leaders also make you think that maybe you don't want to have your supply of strategic product in the hand of unpredictable leaders, okay? And that suddenly will decide that they don't want to supply to you the product, etc. So yes, there are both economic reason to question globalization, because at the end of the day, you need maybe to guarantee a minimum production at home.
Yes.
And you've got also political consideration, because if you are living in an unstable world, there are no rule of the game, so you also have to take that into consideration. But certainly we are now at a cross point. Mr. Trump is accelerating a process of dismantling the existing economic world order. Where are we going? To a new order? Probably. How it's going to look, nobody knows. And but certainly it's not going to be the same as it's been until the 20th of January of this year.
Yes. So, in fact, if we take Europe, how is Europe going to react? Are they going to start producing everything, each country by themselves?
Well, Europe is the best example of joining forces in order to be more productive.
Yes.
I mean, the common market was established because countries realized that being alone is not good. And
Yes.
actually, they created the EU. It started with the common market with the 6 countries, 9, 15, 28, and now 27. The rationale behind creating the union is that, yes, international cooperation is important, and strengthening ties like the EU is doing between its members, having common policies. Some people might be critical about it, but the end game is to make a better life for everybody in the EU. And the standard of living in the EU is the fact, it's a result of this cooperation. If every country would have gone alone, we would have been in such a relatively positive situation in Europe. Everything is not perfect. There are critics, justified one, okay? But the very raison d'etre of creating the EU is to maximize production, to maximize division of labor, and to create more wealth for everybody.
So in this way, with protectionism creeping in, is the European Union going to be able to protect itself as a European Union, or is it going to start breaking up, especially the countries that have the euro? I mean, if you cannot do monetary policy, your own monetary policy, it's a problem. So,
listen, if you remember, a few years ago, there were talks about a free trade agreement between Europe and the United States.
yes,
Okay, that's what the TTP or whatever was the acronym of that, because the idea was then to create even a bigger common market. Okay.
Yes.
Now, it's probably not going to happen. Europe is a big market. It will have to navigate between the United States on one hand and China on the other hand. So I think that Europe is a situation where if it knows how to navigate in the right way, it could probably benefit from that. I think Europe should not ally itself to any of the group. It's a force by itself. It's enough of an anchor of economic activity that can probably take the best out of its cooperation with the US on one hand, and probably also with China on the other. Now, it's true that within Europe, you've got countries that have different perspectives. I think that some people are more towards I would say, the US. Some are more maybe toward China, but they will have insight to find the right equilibrium, because at the end of the day, they should look what benefits Europe. What benefits Europe is to play on all the fields it can, okay?
Yes.
Not being protectionist, because they need both the American market, the Chinese market, not to go only on one side, because then they will lose the other market. So to try to work in harmony inside, and to try to make arrangement that will benefit them in their relation with one bloc, which is probably the Chinese bloc, which is we are seeing being slowly forming itself, and maybe the US bloc, and who knows, maybe there are some other, maybe Africa is a new frontier that also has potential, okay? And Central Asia is countries there with a high natality. Therefore, there are definitely going to be also a market. And one major country that nobody talks about enough is India.
Yes.
India is a major engine of growth. And the question is, what type of relation will India have with in that new world order?
Yes, possibly the new leader in the world, because as you say, every time Barclays advertises for its operations in India, thousands of people with first-class honors degree apply for one job. So the big country, intelligent, they have the thirst to improve. But how do we, little Cyprus in the European Union and Israel, can cope with this? I mean, you are doing very well because of innovation. It's innovation and technology. We in Cyprus will be left a little behind, economic-wise and political-wise. And I'm hoping that we will look to Israel for some guidance.
Well, look,
how come you are doing so well?
So the name of the game is flexibility, agility, diversity. Again, I mean, we, both Cyprus and Israel, are small countries which are extremely depending on their foreign relation in order to generate growth, okay? You are an island that has a lot of potential in the tourism industry, okay, and you take advantage of that, okay. We are a country which has a lot of advantage in the innovation field, especially in the high tech, because this is due to the very, I would say, very good policy of the government to encourage research and development. So we have understood that we don't have natural resources. Therefore, the only natural resources we have is our people. So we invest in our people, okay? But I think that both Cyprus and Israel are small countries that they can probably diversify and adapt themselves to the changing world order, okay? So I'm not pessimistic about small countries that have the ability to adjust to the changes. Obviously, I think that Cyprus is in the right direction by investing more in its own people. I think that's very much something important, to encourage education, education, education. This is the name of the game. And your economy, which is based on service economy, okay, is something that could have a big added value to your economy. Tourism in all its area is something that can definitely be beneficial. But again, the fact that you have also a strategic position in the Mediterranean, and you also have found gas, so it gives you also some independence. The question is how you're going to use those resources that you are going to gain from selling the gas. I mean, those are challenges that you have. But I think that Cyprus can have a very bright future by actually positioning itself as a bridge between various areas, being a hub in transportation, by the way. I think that you can maybe have that also as a hub, because you are well connected, and if you invest in that, that could be also something very positive. And from the cooperation between Israel and Cyprus, definitely is something that should be deepened. We should try to find more areas that we can work together in research and development by using the EU program. And I know that Israeli and Cypriot scientists are working together in order to tap into the Horizon program in Europe. So we can, together with you, actually make benefit of the various program of the EU.
Yes. I know Israel has some good banks, solid banks, that help the economy. We have had a bit of a problem here in Cyprus 10 years ago. Our banks were thrown out of the interbank system as long as 15 years ago. But in a way, it was concealed that it was so bad. And it revealed itself with a haircut on deposits. There are a number of projects in Cyprus that could be done, but the local banks are too small and too weak. Years ago, if somebody wanted to build a hotel in Cyprus for 30 million, he would borrow from an overseas bank, provided he could offer a bank guarantee from a local bank. Now, the problem now is the bank guarantee of our local banks is not acceptable. What do you think for good projects in Cyprus, would there be an interest from Israeli banks to look at the finance of this project, to offer a project? I mean, there are banks, international banks, but are they too busy elsewhere, or are they thirsty for business in Cyprus to do project finance?
Yes, I understand your question. I tell you, one of the reasons that we have a solid bank system is because it was very conservative, okay? Meaning that our banks didn't expand in so many areas, and when there was a big crisis in 2008, our banks were very solid because they didn't have all those derivatives and all those new architecture product or financial product that nobody knew exactly how they were functioning, okay? We have a very strong control over our banks, okay? Meaning the Central Bank of Israel has a very strong control over the behavior of the banks. And by the way, so this is the fact that our banks are, and by the way, we don't have many banks. One of the problems we're having, we have an over-concentrated sector in the banking. We have 2 or 3 major banks. We don't have enough international banking in Israel. This is something we are losing. Now, to what extent Israeli banks will take the risk of helping Israeli entrepreneurs in Cyprus? Again, I know that our system is very conservative. So maybe they would go in cooperation with other banks, okay, by creating consortia of banks, and maybe by using, and here I don't know, but you know, you have access also to the EIB, to the European Investment Bank, and there are programs there, and Israel, together with Cyprus, and can probably benefit in project by having the EIB also joining. So again, it's true that a lot of Israelis are investing abroad, okay, and taking risk, etc. The Israeli banking system, in that sense, is very conservative. But at the end, and if you just look at the profit that they made in the last 2 years, there are some people in Israel who think that it's a bit too much, meaning because they are not risking enough, they are just keeping the money, not paying interest on deposit, but charging a lot of interest on loans. Okay, so that's the way they make their money.
Yes. Coming to inflation, is there inflation in Israel as there is in Cyprus or elsewhere in Europe, where the normal people complain that the supermarket items are going up all the time, not as much as the salaries? Have you got inflation under control in Israel? Now, that's interesting because 50 years ago, you were just born 50 years ago. So, but I remember.
No, I was already in university.
Yes. Overnight, Israel adopted a new technique of controlling inflation. It had a lot of inflation then, and overnight in the morning they changed the currency. And it was successful.
Yeah. Well, it's more complicated than that. Okay, I mean, we definitely were at the verge of bankruptcy in the 80s and 84, 85.
Yes.
And there was a big problem with a big budget deficit, with a big banking, I would say, stock market and stocks of the banks being inflated, etc., and no fiscal policy of the government, and printing money without even thinking what to do, and we reached 400% inflation.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we had to stop it because we couldn't continue. I mean, you couldn't. It was unsustainable, and there was an emergency program that was set up by the Central Bank of Israel, Ministry of Finance. We got some help also from external partners. I mean, the US did help us also at overcoming, bridging a period. But it wasn't just changing the currency. It was price control that was introduced. Okay, it was wage control which was introduced, and it was the political will of all political parties. It was done under a national unity government. Okay,
yes.
Meaning that you need the political will and you need all the social partners to be on board. We had the union on board, we had the employers on board, and we had the government on board, and it was a very strong measure and a discipline that was introduced. And by the way, since then, we have been conducting a very, I would say, IMF type way of running our country, meaning having target inflation, limiting our budget deficit, having a law that actually forbid to go over a certain budget deficit, and the reserve just grew, and we are now very lucky that one of the things that we have reached a certain stability. Not that we don't have a problem with the cost of living in Israel. It's very high, okay? But this is due to different things. First of all, the fact like Cyprus, we're an island economy, meaning we don't trade so much with our neighbors, okay? Everything that we need from abroad, we have to bring either by ships or by plane, okay? Competition inside Israel between various actors is relatively limited. So here again, there are some monopolies which are taking advantage of the situation. The government itself is, I would say, using its very policies by raising, let's say, taxes and the price of water, the price of electricity, and not being efficient enough. So Israel, yes, we have fought the major problem of inflation. We now have a crippled inflation which runs between 3 and 4%, which is still manageable. But this is also due to the fact that for many years, all governments, whether they are from the left or from the right, have maintained budget discipline. Okay, and the strength of the central bank in actually pushing for that, and even I would say the Ministry of Finance has been very strong, not being, I would say, influenced too much by politicians. I know that in a way people don't like it because they say, well, how come the civil servants they are running the country? Well, thank God the civil servants at some point are the ones that are keeping the coffer and are not letting politicians spend money, and they have to be accountable. So you have to change a lot of things in the country in order to fight inflation, in order to get to price stability. And I must say that the current government, and don't forget that Israel today is in a state of war, and the war costs a lot of money. But still, because the fundamentals of the Israeli economy were strong and are still strong, so yes, everything is done, but we have a problem with growing deficit, we have a problem with our expenditure for the war, but I hope that at the end of the day, we will keep the right framework of a good macroeconomic management of the economy, which obviously also comes from a very good system of tax collection, which is also important, okay? So, and we have a VAT, which is also very efficient. So the revenue side is keeping up with the situation. Let's hope that we won't get again to the slope that will bring us to inflation. But the cost of living is a problem, and I know that in Cyprus you also have the same problem. But the way to fight that is by having more competition, by giving more partners or more people on the scene for supply of goods. And yes, and making reforms that encourage more competition and more efficiency.
Yes, yes. And one last topic I would like to exchange views with yourself is how important is it that Israel has its own currency for monetary policy? The European Union, the 19 countries in the Eurozone, they don't have monetary policy. Some Scandinavian countries didn't opt to be in the euro. They don't need it. During COVID, in the UK and in USA, the Prime Minister and the President then, they closed down the factories and the shops. No money for people to earn and survive. So they gave instruction to the central bank to press a button to create money and put in the accounts of their inhabitants. It is so simple. Creation of money is one way of doing it. And had it not been for the closure of the production for a number of years, it would not have caused inflation. It caused inflation in the asset prices, in stock market and property, because the banks were lending towards that way. But do you think that what Trump is doing, they have their own currency in the USA, and it's their currency and the rest of the world problem, as once was said. Are we thinking of changing this upheaval that is created by the change in the economic system? Is it going to be so bad for people that the politicians are going to come and tell us, guys, there is no way out, we have to change the system? No longer fiat currency where we can press a button and produce money either as a central bank or the banks through their method of lending. Possibly go back to gold or something else, or Bitcoin. Are we nearing at all? Because Lagarde announced that in October they are at the end of preparation for the central bank digital euro. A number of countries have come even closer than that. But do you see that are we anywhere near to changing the world economic system, not to be on the fiat currency anymore, not to create quantitative easing at will without having the support of something like gold? Nobody knows, of course, but only the politicians.
Yes. Well, look. I think that the financial markets have developed so much in the last couple of years that today you move billions of pushing a button, etc. I think that there must be a repercussion on what Mr. Trump is doing, also on the financial market, and we are seeing that already happening. I don't think that the issue of having a new currency or having and by the way, you mentioned the euro and you mentioned a country inside the euro, outside the euro, but let's be very clear, all the countries in Europe which are outside the euro have got their currency pegged to the euro.
Yes.
So they're actually, in a way, almost like the euro. They're only keeping the name of the currency for probably some national or whatever political reason. But yes, the big problem is the problem of trust in currency. Okay. Now, what Mr. Trump is doing could have a major effect on the strength of the dollar, and could put the dollar as being the currency of last resort. I mean, today everybody is using the dollar. The dollar is still the major currency for international trade. But I think that, and the big advantage of the Americans is that they are the only one that can print dollars. Okay. But yes, the stability, and you saw the rating agency that have downgraded the United States, meaning that people, and you see also the fluctuation in the American bonds. So yes, the talks about de-dollarization of the international world trade scene is something that were already, there were some noises about it prior to Mr. Trump, okay?
Yeah.
The Chinese and the Russian have already done deals in ruble and in yen, okay? And Saudi Arabia has been selling its oil to the Chinese also, not only in dollars. So yes, we are facing a problem to see whether the dollar will continue to maintain itself as the world currency. I think that the way Mr. Trump is behaving is endangering that, and that could be a big danger another danger for the stability of the world. Who will replace the dollar? Nobody knows. Okay, the euro, the yen, the gold, and you see the rush on the gold, which you see the prices.
Yes.
I mean, this is a destabilization, and the most frightening thing is that financial markets are acting much more rapidly than the trade markets. Okay, and you can have a collapse in few hours. Okay, and this is something that we have to be very, very careful about. I hope that the central bank in the United States, and we've seen the pressure or the declaration of Mr. Trump over the governor of the central bank, but I think that he has calmed down because he understood, or maybe people have told him that that could be a big, big danger to touch the stability of the dollar. I think that Lagarde, and again, I don't want to enter into the digital currencies, etc. I think that this is an area that nobody really knows yet where it's going to.
Right.
Okay, Bitcoin, etc. I'm not a big fan of that, but yes, I mean, the things are changing. The world there is also changing, but I think that you're perfectly right to point out that the financial stability can be endangered by what Mr. Trump is doing. But I hope that we won't get to that, because that could be very, very dangerous for the whole world suddenly to lose an anchor like the dollar, where there is not yet any other currency that can replace it.
Yes. Well, it was a great pleasure speaking to you. I hope we have the chance to speak again. Very enlightening. Thank you very much. I hope you all the best. See you in Cyprus next time you are over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good luck to all of us, and let's keep optimistic,
Yes.
because we don't know any other way. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.